YouTube, what the crap's going on? HeirofCarthage here, and I have another online battle for you. This one is going to be Empire versus Empire, playing against another human player here, obviously, that was just on the game and asked me for a battle. My build is kind of interesting, so I've gone for, I'm going to actually pause it and kind of go over the builds so that you all can see what we've got. I've gone for Demigryph Knights, which are pretty expensive, but these guys are pretty potent too. So I've got 2 Demigryph Knights with halberds, and it makes these guys good versus, they're anti-large units, so they're good versus anything large. And then I have 2 of them with lances, which are good versus infantry. So that leads me with 4 monstrous cavalry units, and that's quite a lot. My main line is going to be handgunners, backed up by long swords, backed up by standard swords. There's 1 spear unit just because of the way the cost worked out. I have Karl Franz on Deathclaw. This was basically just so that I could have a big, strong melee unit to take on enemy characters in case I needed it, so there he is. I have a Bright Wizard here, which has the lore of fire, I think, and then we do have 1 Witch Hunter. The Witch Hunter has actually been patched, so the cooldown on his ability Accusation is much longer. So my opponent over here has got 4 crossbows. These guys are going to be interesting. My handgunners are good, but I mean these guys aren't bad either. He's got spearmen on the flanks, and he's got a main line of great swords. He's got 4 of them, just like me, but he's got several spear units, and he's got 2 Empire Knights, so he's gone a lot cheaper than me on cavalry because he spent a lot of extra money on these Hellstorm rocket batteries. They are good versus infantry, and then I noticed that he had 2 Witch Hunters back here and a Bright Wizard as well, and he's also got Karl Franz, and I believe he is on Deathclaw. Yeah. So anyway, let's watch what happens as the battle starts off. These Hellstorm rocket batteries are going to immediately open fire on me, and 1 of them is fairly inaccurate, but with 3 of them, these guys are going to devastate my army on the way in. And they have a nice wide range in which they hit, so I'm going to get hit, unfortunately, and I'm going to start taking pretty significant losses from the Hellstorm rocket battery. So my opponent has taken a defensive posture, and I'm going to have to be offensive because I do not have the long range. And even if I did, I probably wouldn't want to sit back and take this kind of fire for too terribly long. So I'm losing a lot of men. And you can just, I'm going to let the video play out so you can just see how much barrage my men had to endure in order to get to the front. Again, fortunately, the rockets, I mean, they're accurate enough. They're hitting me. And that's a considerable investment, though. That's about 3 times, what, 1,500 gold to bring those guys to the battle. This is an ultra funds battle. And I'm also well aware of the fact that with 2 Witch Hunters, he clearly means to take out my legendary lord swiftly. So I'm going to have to keep Karl Franz over 100 meters in distance from the Witch Hunters. He just took a rocket right there too. But yeah, my great swords and other units are getting absolutely shellacked on the way over here. I mean, you can see there's definitely a trail of carnage leading up through here with some bodies and stuff on the ground. I finally come within crossbow range, and his crossbows open up on me. And my guys are already so beat up from the fire of, let me just look at the health of so many of my units. The green bar is my health. You can just see how many of my units have taken some substantial health damage. These handgunners rout before they even get into combat. And I'm just going to have to go full-on rush and hope that my Demigryph Knights can swing this battle in my favor because they have gone relatively untouched. And I have swung them all the way out to the flanks. So I've got Demigryph Knights on both flanks ready to move in. His Empire Knights do concern me, but not a great deal. Anyway, I'm just going to go straight for it. My great swords get into combat with his great swords. I do have a, I don't know if my position is really any better than his. I bring up my swordsman to support as well. And here comes my first Demigryph Knight, and its goal is going to be to silence the Hellstorm rocket batteries. And it should do so pretty easily because it is good versus infantry. You can see that they're going to come in here and just absolutely toss those rocket batteries everywhere. At this point, his Bright Wizard uses a little spell thing on me here, and it's going to really hurt some of my guys. But my Witch Hunter is untouched, and I noticed that he wasn't paying attention to his Karl Franz, so I just hit Karl Franz with the Witch Hunter's Accusation. So now his Karl Franz is going to be taking some pretty serious magical damage here. But like I said, they have nerfed the Witch Hunter's damage a little. It's not near as strong as it was, in the sense that the cooldown on that ability is quite long now. So I have all my Demigryph Knights over here, just staying away from his spearmen. And I see a vulnerability in his line. He has several greatsword units engaged here. Then one of my Demigryph Knights is wavering because of Karl Franz, but right here I see an opportunity to break his line over here and get some of my men free. And so I slam into the back of his greatswords with all of my Demigryph Knights over here. And it's going to be pretty potent charge. It immediately causes his greatswords to break, and then I'm going to flee through my own sword lines to get his spears trapped. And now I've got all my Demigryph Knights back behind my line. My handgunners are now getting shots. We're actually doing some damage to Karl Franz. These guys do have armor-piercing missiles, and they can be useful. So I'm starting to get a little revenge for my handgunners, but his Empire Knights actually just charged straight into one of my spear units and killed it. And now they're going to come over here and try and get my handgunners. So I bring my Karl Franz over to stop their Empire Knights, knowing that I can basically just hold them up for a long time. I haven't used a lot of magic yet because there just hasn't been any need to, though this would have been a pretty good location for some magic. However, rather than magic, I'm just going to send my Demigryph Knights in, slaughter his greatsword that was in the way, and then my Demigryph Knights now are going to just start slicing a hole right down through the center of his army. I got that one flank free, and now all of his soft parts of his army here, all of his skirmishers and his artillery, all this money that he spent is now going to be absolutely massacred by my Demigryph Knights, who very, very tough units. So my Karl Franz is chasing their Empire Knights and trying to keep them busy. And you can see that now what looked like a pretty hopeless battle for me is swinging into my favor almost solely because of the Demigryph Knights. They got rid of the enemies on this flank, and then I was able to punch straight through. I do go ahead and use that same flaming spell that he used on me right here. And I do some pretty good damage to one of his crossbow units, and those guys are all routing. So I've managed to stay away from his witch hunters, who are now fleeing from my Demigryph Knight. Or there's never mind, the two witch hunters right here, and they're going to get hit by long swords. This is definitely not the kind of fight that they want to be in. You can see this witch hunter over here just kind of firing away. But yeah, this witch hunter is going to be in bad shape with the long swords around. That's not the fight that they want. But you'll notice that I've kept Karl Franz at a safe distance. I got my witch hunter. He finally got his ability recharged. I used accusation on his Karl Franz for the second time. And so my witch hunter actually ends up getting the job done there, fortunately for me. He's caught up in combat with the knights as well. So my Karl Franz is relatively safe at this point. He's trying to use some magic on me there, but it didn't work. Here's his Bright Wizard running away from long swords. And again, my Demigryph Knights are out here chasing off units. So I've got my opponent pretty well mopped up at this point, and I've got Karl Franz basically just making sure that his Empire Knights are silenced. And this is kind of what I like to... I don't know if it's really worth it to bring Karl Franz on his Death Claw every time, but it ends up just being useful for me at this point because he's mobile and he's quite tanky. And I was able to kind of slow down his Empire Knights some before they actually were able to do any damage to me. He tried to use magic on me again right here, but I got out of the way. Got a little bit of damage done, but it's too late. So we ended up scoring a Pyrrhic victory there. Appreciate the game from my opponent. It was a lot of fun. It was dropping bodies as he played me there. I mean, his Hellstorm rocket batteries were picking up a ton of kills at first. Definitely weakened me. But again, is the Demigryph Knights here just sliced through that one flank. So they hit his one flank, retreated behind my own swords. His spears got caught up with great swords, which was a losing battle. And then I was able to pierce right back through the center of his army where there was a gap, and that ended up doing some big stuff for me. My great swords ended up having a pretty good battle. My swordsman, not so much. I mean, none of my units really did spectacular. Bright Wizard did get a few kills with his spell there, which is nice. And then the Witch Hunter was able to bring down the opposing Karl Franz, so ended up being very important for me. So interesting tactics here. I had gone for an aggressive army. My opponent had gone for a defensive army, and that's kind of how that one turned out. No monsters or anything because it's all Empire, I guess, unless you consider Demigryph Knights monsters, and I guess they kind of are. Hope you all enjoyed this one. HeirofCarthage signing out for now.